iteration. You'll recall from our last iteration, we started applying some business logic so we could check what portfolios names were specified. And when we added a stock into a portfolio, we made sure that the stock already existed in the list of stocks. So these were showed really to illustrate using the business logic. So we gave that to the customer, our last beta, and some comments that came back included just the error formatting. So the default error formatting that comes spits out a code and a message. So you'll see here when I run my portfolios to add a portfolio, you see name and description that sends out an error. So our customer really wants to change that a bit. It shouldn't be called message, it's going to be called details, and they also want to apply a couple of differences. So let's show how you can customize the error response a bit. So right now it comes out as pure code. So if I come in and I'm going to say I'm going to create a default errors, and I'm going to add an error override for our HTTP code 400. So what I can do here is I can come in, call that a string, and sort of type in my message saying, let's override this. Well, actually, let's just change the message. So on a 400 message, you'll see here we have error code and details are passed to us. So we're going to say, hey, we found an error, and we'll say error code, not error, details, bracket, $error code. So that's about very few terms you need to use, so we put them in the help here, and I'll make that a capital. So I'm going to add that error response. So let's come up into our try API. Now when we post with empty name and manager in, just remembered, since we created the error response, I have to come over to portfolios, and I'm going to say apply these custom errors to portfolios. All right, so now whenever a 400 error happens, it says I'm going to check the error response for 400, and hopefully it finds it. So on our post on the portfolio, we're going to pass in all empty strings that we know will cause an error. Now we should see our new error message. So let's do an execute. And you'll see we found an error, portfolio's name must be specified, and we had a bracket on the error code. So we can change the message easily like that. But we want to actually change the format because our customer said we want to go with the Google concept of having an error envelope. So let's do that right quick. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to change message to details. So let's say we're going to come in and we're going to make our error format object. And I'm just going to add two fields here, code and message. And let's say we're going to call it details. Now, to add that in on the code, anytime we create fields, we can provide the default value. So our default value we're going to use as the error code. You'll recall from our last, we know that's going to be given to us so that when we go to make the message, it'll transfer in those values. And I'm going to call this error details. And I'm going to add that type. So now when I come back into default errors, I'm going to come in and say, I'm going to pick a data type, which is where we create all our objects that we use. And now you'll see that let's get rid of this. So we don't have to provide an error, a script at all, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if I do an update on that, let's go see what our message will be. So we'll hit execute again. And we'll see that we have a 400 error here, country and name. So it looks like something went wrong here. Oh my God, I put in the wrong object. All right, let's do this again. I'm going to update the error message, and yes, I did that. No script. All right, let's try that again. So I'm going to execute that. And now we'll come down here and we'll say there's our code 400 and our details is portfolios. So we have the same format, but our customer wanted an envelope. So when we override our messages, why we might use script in this point is to see our other little variable here, error response. What's happening now is, if this is exactly what's happening right now. If I run the error, we're really just getting the error response, which is what we want, code details. So all we need to do is put a little envelope around that to say error, and now we'll print out the same message, but it will have the error envelope. So I'm going to click that, update to save it, and now when we save this and we execute, now we'll come down and look, there's our error envelope with our messages that we wanted. So with error responses, you can customize these objects. You could create more involved objects. And when you combine the objects with a little bit of scripting, and there's not a lot, that's really the main things there. And keep in mind, anything that's passed in on the context all through the logic, any variables defined in the logic, you could use in your errors. So after you create an error response, you can apply it to a path, as we did, or sometimes you just want specific error responses, maybe on the delete. And there you can apply its own error response here. And that will take priority over the path response. So you can have error responses, and in the end, when we generate OpenAPI, this will all be captured in the OpenAPI document that you export. So that concludes this next iteration of how we can customize error responses to make this look very close to how we want this to be. So when our users try this API, they can really try it with the responses that they want to see and get a good feel for it. Thank you.